Hello everyone, this is Simar Rana. Hope you guys are doing great. It's Friday evening, and I'm obliged that I have one of my close, I would say, friend. His name is Kevin Wall Billing. He has his own company, Changed Walks Interactive, and he is a register and research psychotherapist. Kevin, how are you? It's glad to have you in the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Smart, today, and want to wish you and your family and your viewers a happy Thanksgiving.
Of course, happy Thanksgiving, and it's our honor to have Kevin on board right now. He is doing amazing things in life. He has been in business from last 10 plus years, changed a lot of lives, impacting the society, making this world a beautiful place. So I want to jump to Kevin. Kevin, would you let audience know what exactly you do, how you're changing lives, a little bit about your journey, and we can go from there. Please go ahead, Kevin.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm a registered psychotherapist, and there's a college in Ontario for psychotherapists. And it's a little bit different because I get questions sometimes about, okay, well, are you a psychotherapist? Are you a psychologist? Are you a psychiatrist? There's some slight differences, but there's some similarities as well. I've been doing this for about 12 years now. And previous to that, I worked in education as a teacher, as a school administrator, and I really enjoyed that work while I was doing that kind of work. And I enjoyed working with the students, and I enjoyed coaching sports and all of those great things that students do. But I felt that something was missing, and I wanted to run my own business at some point. And there were some things in my personal life that had happened with family that sort of changed the trajectory of what I was going to do for work.
That's great. That's awesome. So you 12 years ago you were a teacher, you were
Yeah.
working with students, and then something happened and you decided you want to be in business for yourself. So
Yes.
what was that defining moment that inspired you, that motivated you, that pushed you, that you know what? It's over. Let's do something my own. What was that defining period? What
Yeah.
changed? What was that movement that pushes you out of your comfort zone, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, I look back on it now, and I think, wow, I can't believe that change happened, and that's something, Samar, that's really important. I think with anybody that's making a change is that first of all, you really have to have the grit and perseverance, I think, to do it. And then secondly, I like to think that in my life that I have supportive people that help me along with a journey such as making a big career change. I remember I had colleagues of mine who were saying to me, they called me Wally based on my last name. My last name's Walbeleg, and my nickname was Wally. And they'd say, Wally, what are you doing? Like you've got about, you got 6 or 8 years before you retire, and life's going to be good, and you can collect your pension, and blah blah blah. For me, something was missing. I wanted to do a little bit more. And on a personal note, at the time, in about 2007. My mother was diagnosed with depression, and she's been battling this almost her entire life. And she was in a pretty bad state, and I would say even close to suicidal. And what I had seen firsthand was that she got some excellent care by her healthcare team. And at that point, I thought, there's a good bridge between what I was doing as a school administrator and as a teacher that I could possibly get into this field. So I looked into it a little bit more. I was motivated to go back to school, and I was kind of doing double duty. I was working as a vice principal in the school system, and I was also doing some coursework as well. And it was busy, and it was hard to do at the time, but it was very rewarding. And I'm glad to say that my mother is doing well. She's in her mid 80s, and I feel blessed. I feel blessed that she got the care that she did.
That's so awesome. First of all, I am so happy for your mother
Thank you.
that she came out of that phase, and she is happy. Long give her God give her long age. Secondly, you talk about you were a teacher and your peers, associates were questioning you that what are you going to do? It's
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's the age of the retirement, and you're starting something new. Your face reminds me of KFC owner. He started the KFC in late 60s. If you see him, if I see you, I can't differentiate who is who.
Okay. Well, yeah. Maybe I look a bit like Colonel Sanders. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And his friends were also questioning him that, what are you doing, man? It's time to retire. You taught me something right now, very generous. Then when we are trying to change something, when we are trying to change the world, people question us. And that's the time when we stick to our decision, why we started that thing. So when these moments when came to your life, people were questioning you, but your why was so strong that I want to do this thing. I saw my mother going through that thing.
Yeah.
So how you were able to stick yourself to your why, and how you were able to do what you're doing today with so much passion, Kevin.
I think a good question, and I use the question quite often now with people that I see and that I interact with is, let's say you have a yardstick or you have a continuum, and you ask them a question about what is your motivation to change. And some people might say, and the scale is 0 to 10. Some people might say, well, you know what? I know I'm a few pounds overweight, and I know I should lose weight. And I've talked to my doctor, and my doctor says that I should do that. But you know what? I don't really feel that's important for me right now. I might be a 3 or a 4 out of 10. Other people may say, you know what? I've been carrying around this weight too long. I know it's not healthy for me. I'm at like an 8 or a 9. I know that I have to make a change in my life. And I think that's a really important point, is that if that motivation is at an 8 or a 9, then the chances of that happening are a heck of a lot greater than if they're a 3 or a 4. And again, that goes back to motivation, that goes back to grit and perseverance, and people to help you along the way.
That's so awesome. You talk about the Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
You talk about the rate indicators, 8 out of 10, 3 out of 10. I never had heard these things before. So when you sit with clients, you do actually rate them from scale of 3 to 10, how much you're ready to change. Do you provide them the options? Is it going to be 8 by 10? So if somebody says to you it's 3 by 10, how you inspire them, how you motivate them that come to 8 by 10, then we are good to go. So how you help people to go from 3 by 10 to 8 by 10 so they can change something in their life.
There are, what I love about my job, I'll back it up a little bit. What I love about my job is that I get an opportunity to meet a lot of different people. I work with a lot of kids that are in college, university, starting out their career, looking for a career, C-suite executives as well. And that question applies really to everyone. I met a gentleman recently, a senior person at a consulting firm in Toronto, and he was talking about we were talking about success and what success looked like to him. And he said, the life of somebody that's working in a consulting firm is they always dangle a carrot of, you're going to make more money, you're going to climb up the ladder. He goes, for me, I thought about this question a lot. For me, it's I really want to have an interesting life. I want interesting stories. And at the end of my work life, I don't want any regrets. I don't want to regret that I've left something off the table. And I thought that was really interesting. Everybody's story is different. I think that's what makes psychotherapy interesting as well, is that we have to drill down sometimes and to find out what that motivation is like and what motivates the individual person.
That's
You've got,
very
I
sorry.
was just going to say, you have a very good story as well. And, I'd be curious to ask you as well what your motivation was to make some changes in your life, because I know that that's happened to you as well.
Well, if you talk about my story, I came to this country in 2016 with a mechanical engineering background, nothing no very new. No friends, no family. Just landed in 2016 August. Just came out of the Mississauga airport. The first thing I like about the country was fresh air, good food, good smell,
Yeah.
smiling faces. I started my university. I saw people with safety shoes going back and forth from school from safety shoes, and I was thinking in my head right now, is that the life I want to live? Is that the life I can imagine if I graduate? That I am going to the school, wearing the safety shoes, and what I'm adding to my personality? I came from engineering background. I don't see myself wearing safety shoes. I respect people who wear safety shoes, but I don't want to be like them. I met few people. I went to networking events. I met some people who were making 10x money than me. They were more sharp, looking, smell, having driving good cars, and I was like, I want to be one of them. So I changed my association. The first thing, I believe the association impacts people's life a lot. My first five friends, my paycheck is average of my first five friends, I would say that. My first five friends are business owners, lawyers, immigration owners, and I love to hang with them. We have the same mindset, same frequency, no gossip, only talk about positivity, growth, progressive mindset. The things what was inspiration for me to change was it was my family because I
Mm.
want to make them proud. I want to validate their sacrifice. I want to see that we send our children to Canada and he has changed a lot. So they are my biggest motivation that what I am today and where I am today, I'm still growing, I'm still learning, Kevin.
That's great. That's great. What I get thinking about when I'm speaking with you is, and everybody's story is different, but that's a great story about motivation and what pushes you forward. And I think there's some factors there that I'm hearing from you about motivation. And one of them is, I think, the idea of mastery. When you came to the country, you had to master a lot of different things and a lot of different skills. Mastery is, I get better at things that I'm doing. I get better at my craft. I get better at, understanding the culture and the language and everything else. That's the first thing. I think the second thing is that a person has to feel like they're autonomous, that they can do things based on their own merit, and they're not necessarily relying on a lot of different people, but this is internal, so they're relying on themselves. And I think the third thing, and probably the most powerful thing, is purpose. What's my purpose for doing this? So mastery, autonomy, and purpose. And purpose is very much related to, I believe, to motivation.
Awesome. Awesome. I want to ask you something very crazy. During my last 7 years, I realized a thin line between a motivation and inspiration. I have experienced this thing that motivation is like a honeymoon. It lasts for 4 days and 5 days, and discipline takes the place of motivation.
Yeah.
So, how would you differentiate between a motivation and inspiration? Should I get motivated or should I get inspired?
That's a good question. I think motivation is internal.
Mm-hmm.
Motivation's internal, and I think that has something to do with the habits that we build.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this is going to be different for different people. I can be inspired watching somebody or observing somebody. It could be a family member, it could be a friend, somebody that is doing some incredible things, and that could be inspiring for me. But I believe that motivation has perhaps more of a powerful nudge for me that can push me a little bit farther forward. We know, for example, and research will bear that out, that motivation is more powerful if it comes from within rather than an external pressure that's acting on us. So I have to feel that I've got some skin in the game. I'm the commander of my own ship. If whether I sink or swim, that's on me. And that again, I think is pretty powerful.
You know what? I am loving your energy. So much positivity. I can feel the goosebumps, honestly, magnetism. I can feel the wisdom coming, whatever you're saying. It's so damn true. You talk about sinking or swimming, motivational is within, ec- regardless if it's coming from external pressure. It's so much depth in those lines. So when we talk about the purpose of life, somebody I was not having the purpose of my life, but somebody made me realize that there has to be a purpose. There has to be a driven motivational force that can push me to wake every single morning in the day and meet people so I can impact people's life. People who don't have a purpose of life, they're just going back and forth, that back and forth, how they should define their purpose of life and what resources or what channels they go through so they can find their strong competency and they can impact people's life, Kevin.
I think what you're touching on is something that's important, and the concept of I can't influence anybody else until I really know myself. And I talk to people quite often when I'm doing career counseling, for example, and we start talking about some pretty basic questions. Some of them might be around motivation, but really, when we drill down, I want to know, what are you interested in? What's your family background like? What was your education like in your schooling? Who do you hang out with? Who's your social group? What are you interested in? So interest is important. People's personalities are also quite different. Some people are very much suited to, perhaps it's a sales role, perhaps it's an engineering role, perhaps it's working in the humanities. We're all different, but I have to know that, and I also have to have a pretty good sense of what I value. What are the important values that I have? And I'll be honest, some people will contact me and they want to go through perhaps some career counseling, and they might say right off the bat, I just want to make more money. That's it. I just want to make more money. Okay, well, let's focus on that. Other people might say, well, I enjoy cooperation with other people. I want to find meaningful work. I don't want to feel so stressed out. It depends what a person values, and I think having discussions around that are really important at getting to know yourself.
That's so awesome. Great. So wisdom, I want to ask you something. When you talk about career counseling, so how exactly you help people? What are those areas where you touch base with them and how their lives get impacted when they meet you, and what kind of enlightenment you give to them that they have a purpose, now they know what they are doing, now they know what kind of habits they want. So how do you help to reprogram their mind for the success, Kevin?
Yeah. Sometimes, Samar, that might start with an assessment. We do some assessments sometimes, and that might give us a better picture about some of those areas that I talked about, like perhaps your interests or your personality or your values. Also, just looking at some basic things. What's this new economy all about? What's happening post-COVID? What jobs are hot? What jobs are not? Where am I best suited? Talking about that new economy, talking about the changing atmosphere of work and where you might fit in. That's really important. I think secondly, yes, I got to know about myself. I need to work on myself, discover who I am before I can go out on my journey. I have to think about, what's my brand? What's my unique proposition? what's my value that I can add to an organization, or if I'm running my own business, what's the value that I'm going to add? And thinking about my brand, a lot of people might be applying for only a few positions. So what puts me in a good place where, that's more likely to happen, that I could get that job that I'm looking for? I also have to understand coping, and how do I cope with those ups, and how do I cope with those downs? Because when I'm sitting in the trough sometimes and I'm feeling discouraged and my confidence is at a lower point, what are some things that I can do to make sure that I'm being the best that I can be? And then taking that information, putting that all together in a way, whether you are working on the shop floor wearing your steel-toed shoes, or whether you are the CEO of a company, I think you have to ask those questions to yourself and do a deep dive on what is it that I'm looking for.
That's so deep. That's so deep. So I come across people every single day which are just living their 9 to 5 life, so busy in paying bills. The advantage of countries like North America is we have access to debt very easily, and we are not even we don't have any income, but still we know we have access to available cash from the bank. We go and purchase high premium cars, high premium loans, and in that pursuit we are doing 9 to 5, 5 to 9, maybe two jobs, maybe three jobs, and maybe we are not
Yeah.
able to find the purpose of the life in that pursuit. So how would somebody who is stuck in the rat race can step aside, take a deep breath, have a pause, ask himself, have a self talk, what I'm doing with myself, what kind of impact, what kind of legacy I'm living from my children, what kind of how I'm changing the society. So how he should ask him a tough questions when he is busy in doing these things.
Yeah, that's a really good point. A couple things maybe that I could just comment on in relation to that. You mentioned about self-talk. We have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to change our self-talk every single day. Now, that self-talk is like a fork in the road. I could have negative self-talk. That could be my dominant thought or my narrative or my story, or I can take a different path, and that different path may be enthusiasm, it may be gratitude. I can choose that, and I have a choice with that. So I think that self-talk is really important. There's also a concept called delayed gratification. I don't know if you've ever heard of that before, but years ago they did just very quickly, they did experiments with little kids, and the examiner or the researcher would be in an office, and there'd be some kids in the office. They'd call them in individually, and they would put a candy or a marshmallow or something on a plate, and they'd say to the kid, you can eat that right now if you want, or if you wait 5 minutes, you'll get two treats. And what they did was they tracked these kids over time. So some kids ate right away. Other kids were able to wait 5 minutes, and then they got two. Well, they tracked these kids over time, and they found that the kids that delayed that gratification, if they waited the 5 minutes, well, longitudinally in a study, they found that those kids had better self-control, less trouble with the law, more positive outcome. It's just very interesting with delayed gratification, that everything doesn't have to happen right now, that if you have a plan, that this can transcend your entire life. This can be a philosophy to which you live by.
That's
Simplicity sometimes is wonderful too.
so awesome. Temperament, patience, delayed gratification. You're sounding like Anthony Robbins. You
Well,
know,
that's a nice comparison.
yeah, John Maxwell. You talk about the habits. I must assume you have read Atomic Habits.
Oh yeah,
You talk about a lot of things, which reminds me of the book Grow and Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill,
sure.
one of my favorite. And you talk about leadership, John Maxwell, five levels of leadership.
Yes,
I'm just feeling like that I'm having all the people in one soul sitting in front of me talking about the wisdom right now.
I appreciate that.
You know, yeah.
Tell me about. I'm curious. I'm curious about your story too. Is tell me how, maybe specifically how you've developed those habits, because I think that's really key. Is that maybe it's that fork in the road that we discussed earlier, but how is it that um, you've developed some kind of guiding principles in your life that keep you going, because every day is not going to be easy. There's going to be a struggle. What keeps you on point? What keeps you going?
I imagine every single moment. I'm walking in a coliseum full of 200,000 people full of 200,000 people, and when I'm walking on stage, they are chanting my name again and again and again. So I feel like I wanna impact that many number of lives, and I wanna leave a legacy. Even if I'm gone long, people should remember me that somebody was in my life that has changed the generations to come. I think it's just not about making money, it's about how many people better live because I did something for them.
Yeah,
That when
yeah,
I and there was a gentleman I used to admire a lot. He's not on this planet, but his name was Bill Britt. And when he was an ex-army officer, and when he used to walk on the stage, and Free Enterprise Day in Las Vegas, and people were chanting his name, goosebumps, and I could realize what impact he has made on the people's life. So I want to make the same impact, and that's what I want to do, and that's what pushes me every single day, and that's what helps me to do self-improvement so I can be 2.0 version of myself.
that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And that's infectious. It's contagious. It rubs off. It rubs off on other people. I think what happens sometimes too, Samar, is that I think people try maybe to bite off more than they can chew sometimes. That process maybe has to be in bite-sized chunks. You see what the vision is at the end of the road, but you go at it systematically, and maybe part of that is habits that we discussed earlier. I love listening to podcasts. I love listening to things that are inspirational. And back to the example that I was talking about earlier, where if somebody wanted to get in better shape and start going to the gym, there was a suggestion on a podcast that change your story first, and change it bit by bit. This one coach was talking about, well, if you want to go to the gym, I would advise that you get up early in the morning, you grab your workout clothes, you jump in your car, you drive to the gym, and don't even go in. Don't even go in. Just make sure you're there nice and early in the morning, turn around, and then come back home. And do that the next day, and do that the next day. And then maybe after that, you go inside, you take a look around, and it might be a week before you start working out, because you want that habit to keep going and going and going. Um, I think people get discouraged if they jump from, well, here I am now, and I want to get to this point, and I'm not there. I can't possibly get there, and then I give up.
You know what? It's so true. Now something is coming in my mind. You were saying first you crawl, then you walk, and then you run. You can't go from
Yeah.
crawling to running. You have to go from crawling to walking to running because it's going to make sense. The
Yes.
dots are interconnected. What are you talking about? I read a book, Neuropsychological Chemical Reaction, 7 years from now, how brain operates when we are trying to adopt a habit, and when we are trying to leave the non-generating habits behind. So when you talk about these things, the social media has a lot of impact on people's brain right now. Everywhere they scroll up, it's a lot of negativity. I would say that. How would
Yeah.
somebody would shut the voices of failure so they can hear the voices of success?
Um, I think a person would have to define what that is. So I think success would be different for everyone. Failure would also be different for everyone. So what we do in psychotherapy, Samar, is that sometimes there's folks that have we talk about self-talk. So there might be a lot of that negative self-talk that comes up. They will possibly do things like they'll think in catastrophic terms that the worst possible thing is going to happen. They might discount the positives in their life. You know how sometimes if we achieve certain things, we almost dismiss it. We say, "Oh, that's not important." But wow, if something negative happens, that's where we shine the light, and maybe we have to change that. One of the things my wife and I have gotten into the practice of doing in the morning, we like to do a little bit of reading, and we keep a little tab of sticky notes. And on those sticky notes, we'll write simple things about what we're grateful for, and we'll put those sticky notes inside a big jar. And we like to read those on New Year's or around that time of the year. And in a way, it gives us a way of seeing all of the collection of all of those papers inside the jar of things that we are grateful for. So we want to focus more on gratitude and maybe less on the things that we perceive that we're not doing well. It's that story that I could recreate. I could write my new story every single day, right? But do I have the grit and the perseverance to do that?
So awesome. So awesome. You know what you're talking about is law of attraction. What you sow, sow as you reap.
Boom.
You
Yeah.
wanna, what you're talking about is we thank everyone, but we don't thank the God Almighty who has given us the brains, who has given us beautiful hands, beautiful life, beautiful things, beautiful wife, kids, job, money. And
Yeah.
sometimes when we start thanking them unconditionally, they we have their more blessings. I
Yeah.
always you're saying to me that Simmer, I'm counting blessings in my life as compared to what I don't have, so I can have what I have, which I don't have. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I love the idea of law of attraction. I'm totally aligned towards law of attraction. So when you practice this law of attraction, how you communicate this law of attraction message to your clients, how their life gets changed when they practice law of attraction and gratification.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. I think that has something to do with your level of control that you have in your life. And I realize, talking to a lot of different people, that um, when I can control my thoughts, my actions, my behaviors, um, the information that I'm reading, what I do, all of those things are in my control. Another thing that's really in my control is, what you were saying about my body and about what I have and what God has given me. I can control in a way the food that I eat, the movement that I get, the actions that I take, the attitude that I bring. Those things are all in my control, which may relate then to these laws of attraction. I'm attracted to talking to people who are enthusiastic, and if they're not enthusiastic about wellness, about getting better. Part of my journey, it started out. I did some graduate training in health science, and then I did my graduate training in psychology, and I try to use both of those to have a holistic view of people, mind, body, spirit, and what that means, and could I put that into practice in a practical way that's going to assist not only me, but those people that are close to me, those people that are in my life.
That's so awesome. You talk about mind, body, spirit. I love that. I love these things. So whenever somebody approaches you that they have some X problem in life, you provide them a Y solution. So how you help somebody to be disciplined? I believe the major problem which I was facing when I was transitioning was discipline. I was
Yeah.
eating wrong food, consuming wrong data, and the main problem was procrastination. I come across a lot of people who are the victim of procrastination. They're not
Yeah.
able. Somebody told me victory is private. First is private victory, then is public victory. So how would somebody would be able to come out of procrastination if they want to grow? They have alarm beeping at 7 a.m., but they wake up at 8 a.m. Somebody wants to go to gym, they are not going to gym because they sleep late night. So what exactly they should do to come out of this procrastination zone, Kevin?
Yeah, part of what we discussed before was, sometimes young people will fall into that trap, and then I see that quite often with young men now that fall into that procrastination trap, and it sort of feeds on itself. That negativity. I stay up too late at night. I maybe I'm using drugs and alcohol. Maybe I'm not contributing to the family like I should be. I think that goes back to motivation. I think that goes back to setting small goals that are achievable. I think that also goes back to my day to day about how I schedule things. I don't know about you, but I know that when I start my day, I've got a great big whiteboard in my office, and I spend a few minutes just putting a few ideas down on that whiteboard or things that I have to do. And every time that I get something done, I feel great because I knock it off my whiteboard, and I feel like I've accomplished something. So I give myself a little pat on the back, so to speak, and I feel good that's been accomplished. So I think goal setting, regardless of who you are, what you are, that's an important thing. Um, think about the level of perseverance and grit and support that you have working towards your goals, and check in. Have somebody that's accountable. Have an accountability partner, just like the author of Atomic Habits would write about. Have that accountability partner that is going to make sure that you're staying on track. For some people, I'm that accountability partner. So
Okay.
what I like to do, if I'm working with a client, and let's say we're working on some skills that will help with depression, anxiety, career development. Maybe they're grieving. Maybe they're experiencing some bumps in the road in terms of their relationship with their spouse, with their children. Then let's look at some goals, some small goals that we can work on. So when we talk next, I'll ask you, hey, how's those goals that we were working on? How are things going? How are things going in your family? How are things going personally for you? You wanted to lose that weight. What are some of the roadblocks? It's almost like a SWOT analysis. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses, opportunities, or threats? Let's talk about that. Let's get that out into the open. I think that's helpful for people.
That's so awesome. Talking goal writing, I would say sometimes if I want to buy a new car, take the picture and print it out of the fridge. I can see my goal, I see the vision. I could sometimes, you won't believe it. I want to buy a new car right now. It's expensive. I went to the showroom and I feel my goal. I feel the vision, and I go there every single week because I want to feel that where I want to go, you know. I can
Yeah,
feel the steering, that smell of the new car, those technology, those AI, you know, that's what has changed my life. And I think that's what you're telling: goal writing, dream visualization, perception. When perception is so strong than reality, then perception becomes a reality.
yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So yeah. So which are the books which are you reading right now, at the moment?
Oh, I read a lot of different stuff. Some I read, that's related to clinical skills. So I read a lot of that stuff. I just read. I just got through some books by. I'm trying to remember the author. Anyways, it was a book on Steve Jobs. He had written a book on Elon Musk, and he had written a book on Leonardo da Vinci.
Wow.
Walter Isaacson is his
Mm-hmm.
name, and these are people that have changed the world. And I'm interested in that. I love biographies, and I love listening to the stories of people that really make an impact. So those ones I read. But again, a lot of things. My wife makes fun of me. She says, "Oh, why are you reading that? That's like work." But I enjoy it. I enjoy the curiosity that I have. I want to learn more about some of the things that I'm helping people with. So I will constantly do that. Yeah. How about yourself? Like, what sort of things keep you going? What kind of things are you reading these days?
I'm reading 10x by Grant Cardone. I was reading first How to Influence People and Friends, then I read Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. Then I was reading this Gary Vaynerchuk is one very enthusiastic entrepreneur. He's on always online, talking about
Yeah.
socialism. Yeah, so I follow Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Cash for Quadrants.
Yeah.
I there's a book called what's the book? I just have it. Top Dog. Yeah, the Top Dog. you know so I want to ask you something. one
Sure.
ceo one CEO is who is not reading books, and there is one CEO who is reading PMA books, business books, uh, improvement books. Who is not reading and who is reading? I heard somebody reading 64 books in a year. How does that impact for somebody who is reading and who is not reading? How does it impacts their life in productivity and impacting people's like yeah.
Yeah. Um, some people respond better to different things. Like some people would, I think, in my experience, would they love to listen to things, so they're auditory, so they love listening to podcasts, they love listening to music. They really enjoy that. Other people are voracious readers, they love diving into books. I think as long as that curiosity is somehow elevated. It might even be, it might be watching YouTube. Maybe you watch TED Talks um, on YouTube, and you're inspired by the messages that are on there. Whatever it is, I think it has to be something. I think there's something that has to keep your mind fresh, new ideas, different ways of looking at things, and then perhaps sharing that with somebody else and seeing what their perspective is on it. I mean, everything from politics these days to what's happening. If you're a sports nut like me, you probably like reading about different things that are related to that. But I think it's good to have that curiosity, and I think that that's a good way that we can also combat stress in our lives. That we're not always on 24/7 thinking about the next deal or thinking about achieving all my business goals. That these things like reading and activity and getting out in nature, they fill in the cracks of our life so that people are better able to manage their stress. They're better able to find gratitude. They look for joy. And we could find joy in something that we read. We could find joy in nature. We could find joy in having a good conversation that's with somebody who's on the same wavelength.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome. It was pure wisdom, the pure knowledge shared by you in today's podcast. And I believe viewership is going crazy. You are impacting people's life. Any quick line message you want to give before we wrap up to people who are listening you, what they should do just to change a little by little so they can be somewhere in life?
Yeah, I think it's important to make sure that you talk to somebody, and whether that's a person in your family, if you want to, if you want to talk to somebody that confidentially, for example, if you wanted to reach out, have a conversation, I'd be more than open to do that. I have two locations myself. I have two clinics. One is in Oakville, one's in Mississauga, and I think sometimes people need somebody else to act as a sounding board to what they are thinking. So if they share that with somebody else, if they share that information with a spouse or a friend, the talking is what's important, because if we don't do that, we have a tendency to avoid more. And when we avoid more, we see more often anxiety, we see more often depression. It's just one of those things that we should probably think about doing.
That's awesome, Kevin. That's awesome. I would say it was pleasure listening to you. You provided a lot of nuggets. I have felt that everything, whatever you wrote on a piece of paper, I could practice it from myself. Even I'm not your client, but still, whatever you're saying is totally practically. I want to implement in my life whatever is missing. And you know what I would say? Definitely, I would love to bring you in the next podcast where we'll talk in depth how exactly you change people's life. I'm going to study about your subject so I can ask you more quality questions. And I would say it was really nice having you, Kevin. And I would say all the people who are watching Kevin, you can reach him. I have tagged him. He's in Brampton. He's in Mississauga. He's go-to guy. Just approach him. He's going to change your life.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And the way that we started out this podcast today was that, I said to you and your listeners that take some time about what you're thankful for. We do live in a great country, and we have a lot to be thankful for. So enjoy that time. Enjoy the food, enjoy the time, and enjoy the time with family and friends. Happy Thanksgiving.